Good evening, everybody. I am very, very happy to be able to welcome all of you, and especially that there's so many of you here tonight, to hear Shin Dong-hyuk and to hear his story, and to hopefully be inspired by his story and to inspire you to take action on it. My name is John Cameron. I'm the Chair of International Development Studies at Dalhousie. And again, it's my job here, just very briefly tonight, to thank all the people who need to be thanked for making this event possible. I've got a short list here. I want to make sure I don't forget any of them. First, I want to thank Shin Dong himself for traveling here despite a busy schedule. He's had to cancel a number of other events to be able to come to Halifax. But I think as will become clear, he's come here for some very special reasons. A very special thanks also to Mr. Henry Song, Shin Dong-hyuk's translator. Simultaneous translation is not an easy job, and I think we've got one of the best here tonight. The financial support that made Shin Dong-hyuk and Henry Song's travel to Halifax this week possible came from several important sources, and we're very thankful for all of them. The Canadian Association for the Study of International Development, CASID, the Office of Bonnie Newman, Dalhousie's Vice President of Student Services, and most importantly, the fundraising efforts of the International Development Studies students in our Development Activism class. Oops, I'm playing with the technology. The IDS students in the Development Activism class in the IDS department who've worked tirelessly over the last several months, not just to raise money, but also with many other organizational elements of bringing Shin Dong here tonight. Shin Donghyuk's presence in Halifax this week, and I should emphasize, can you hear me in the back? Am I talking through the microphone? No. Let me try this one. I can either just be really loud. Is that better? Much louder. Shin Dong-hyuk's presence in Halifax tonight, in fact, he's been here all week at a number of events at Dalhousie, is really a very remarkable story. Not just his story, which is remarkable in and of itself, but also the story of the students who brought him here. As I mentioned earlier, a very special thanks goes out to the many IDS students in our Development Activism class who've worked tirelessly. They started out becoming aware of Shin Dong-hyuk's story by reading the book Escape from Camp 14, but they didn't stop with just learning. They continued by taking action in many very creative forms of awareness raising, putting pressure on our political leaders, including a mass send-off of their copies of Escape from Camp 14 to federal MPs in Ottawa. And they've kept working, even though the course ended in December, they've kept working on this project after that. So this is a project that goes far beyond the traditional university experience. So a very big thank you to all of those students, and I think Bob Hewish is going to thank them again and again. I also want to thank Angela Day, who's helped us with the promotion of this event, and most especially to my colleague, Professor Bob Hewish, who you'll meet in a minute. His dedication to students and his convictions about the importance of human rights and the need for political action to respect and protect human rights has played a very big part in making this evening possible. So I'm going to turn the microphone over to my colleague, Bob Hewish. Thank you.
Good evening. I think for the sake of those who are in the standing room department, I won't be very long. How's this mic? Equally as crappy, or are you good to go? It's good? Okay. I am sure that many of you have likely read Escape from Camp 14. A show of hands who have actually read Blaine Harden's. And for those of you who have yet to read Blaine Harden's book, I'm absolutely convinced that you will. Many of you who have read Escape from Camp 14 will know already, you already feel like you know Shin Dong-hyuk. And tonight, you will get to know him even better. And he will get to know all of you. To know of this man who was born into a total control zone, who then escaped, and who now continues to fight for the human rights of 200,000 North Korean prisoners. It didn't work anyway, it's not a problem. 200,000 North Korean political prisoners who were bound by the same fate that he faced. You will get to know Shin Dong-hyuk tonight and his relentless political activism that takes place since his escape only a few years ago. You will get to know that he continues to speak out. His story is certainly one of the most harrowing and powerful experiences of the human condition we may ever hear. And we will get to know this story, but we will also get to know his humor. We will get to know his wit, and we will get to know his compassion for others. And his refusal to stay silent is what has brought us all together tonight, who have oversold the Scotiabank Auditorium on this evening. And we owe enormous thanks, as Professor Cameron alluded to the students of the International Development Studies program at Dalhousie University, notably the students in Development and Activism's Camp 14 project. I assume there are many of those students here tonight. May I ask those students to please stand up for me? Just so you get a sense of the numbers. To those students who are here tonight, you worked tirelessly for months to make sure that Shin Dong-hyuk's message didn't go silent here in Halifax, in Canada, and around the world. You worked tirelessly to bring him here tonight. But most important of all, as a class, as I think the only class in Atlantic Canada, you refused to stay silent on a pressing human rights issue. Indeed, you chose to be a voice for the voiceless, and that in itself deserves enormous thanks. You took the story and then you created demands for action on the streets, within our own community, and with members of our own government. Members of government who received copies, your own copies of Escape from Camp 14, and who tonight said that human rights must be at the forefront of any discussions with North Korea, as was announced tonight on the 6 o'clock news. Perhaps they read Shin Dong-hyuk's story, perhaps they even read your own book. You organized, you mailed copies of Escape from Camp 14, you wrote to government, and all along with a clear message that we cannot acquiesce to the brutal human rights conditions that are forced upon political prisoners in North Korea. Those conditions for which Shin Dong-hyuk will speak to include torture, physical abuse, and martial law. All imprisonment for ideological reasons. In fact, Camp 14 violates every single clause of the UN Charter of Human Rights and Freedoms and countless more tenets of the human condition that seem almost unimaginable. Removal of limbs, torture of children. To have children born into captivity, to be raised to deceive rather than to trust, to fear rather than to love, to be denied the knowledge that there is a world around them, and the knowledge that that world is actually round, only to be told your entire life that there is only a camp, fences, guards, and prisoners. And to remind you of it, and to break the rules will mean that you are shot, and to remind you of it, the guards insist that you watch public executions, even when it is your own mother and your own brother. There are many lessons from Shin Dong-hyuk's story, but a couple stand out. The first is that if a man born into the most pervasive, perverse conditions of humanity can become a world-renowned human rights activist, it shows that within all of us there is a power to speak out against that for which is unjust. The second lesson is that once we learn of Shin Dong-hyuk's story, we cannot turn our backs on these extreme human rights crises. We are challenged to act. We are challenged to find the courage to act in whatever way possible to do something. And that is what has brought us here tonight. Why Halifax? Why here? Why us? I believe that it is because if we can know about and then tolerate the most extreme human rights abuses in a far corner of the world, then we can likely grow to tolerate lesser abuses closer to home. But if we are aware of these tragedies and we do choose to act magnificently in however way we can, then there is no telling for the potential for social change. There is not a single course in the city that is in political science, sociology, or international development studies that covers the topic of human rights in North Korea. Not a single one. When you look through databases like this, as academics do, to see where journals are, if you type in the words United States in prison, you're served with over 1,100 articles at our fingertips. When you type the words North Korea in prison in, you get only 2. There's hardly any. It's a complete and total academic silence, except for here, except for tonight, except for right now. This silence, I believe, demonstrates an urgent need for engagement, and this is where we all come in tonight. When the students organized, Shin Dong-hyuk wrote to us a personal message, promising that he would come to visit. He came here tonight to meet with us. He turned down military generals, UN ambassadors, who also want to see him, and he wanted to come here tonight to see you. Tonight is now part of an ongoing saga to fight against what is totally and morally wrong. And here, it is where we begin a relationship with each other and with Shin Dong-hyuk, a relationship of a responsibility to act, to not to forget, and to not ignore. Now we are all involved. The question is, what do we do? There are 200,000 prisoners, 24 million people living in this tyranny. China benefits from this situation. South Korea has little interest in inheriting such a desperate population. And some may say that it is impossible to take action because it is socially complex, politically perplexing, and financially burdensome. But those are the very excuses that have been used throughout history to tolerate gross human rights violations. The same things were said about Nazi Germany in the 1930s, about Stalin's gulags in the 1940s, and about slavery in the 19th century, so as we should not take action. But what we have seen in history time and time again, if it shows us anything, is that by refusing to ignore, by becoming involved in the process of change, it can be a global force more powerful, so powerful that no dictatorship can suppress it. And this is the role for action, for activism, and for solidarity. At a time when politicians and academics are largely silent, at a time when mainstream media looks only to the nuclear threat or to Dennis Rodman's bizarre holiday destinations, at this time, there is one man who has suffered injustice beyond comprehension and who, at this time, refused to stay silent. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Shin Dong-hyuk.
Thank you, everyone. Good evening. 저도 이렇게 많은 분들이 이렇게 자리를 꽉 참석해 주시는 걸 상상 못했었어요.
I never imagined that this hall, this place for the event would be filled to capacity like this.
다시 한번 여러분들께 대단히 진심으로 감사를 드리고 있습니다.
I want to again thank all of you very deeply for coming here tonight.
지금 전 세계적으로 지금 북한에 대한 이슈가 굉장히 이제 많이 관심을 받고 있죠.
And all over the world, the issue of North Korea or anything related to North Korea, it's in the news a lot these days.
또 가장 첫 번째가 이제 핵 문제죠.
And first of all, the first thing in the news is regarding the nuclear issue.
북한 정부의 입장에서는 이제 이 핵만 있다고 하게 되면은 모든 게 다 해결된다고 이제 느끼는 것 같습니다.
And I believe that the North Korean regime, they believe that if they possess or if they have nuclear weapons, that all problems will be solved for them. And this is the position that they have.
제가 이게 오늘도 이 행사에 오기 전에 뉴스를 하나 봤었습니다.
And before I came to this event tonight, I saw another piece of news related to North Korea.
북한 정권은 미국이나 한국에 아무 때나 핵을 쏠 수 있다고 그렇게 발표를 했죠.
And this news was the latest threat announced by the regime that they will attack South Korea or USA with the preemptive nuclear strike.
그래서 많은 사람들이 또 그 핵은 무서워하고 있어요.
And of course, many people are fearful. They fear of the nuclear weapons possessed by North Korea.
근데 저는 생각이 다르습니다.
However, my thoughts are a little bit different.
핵이 무서운 게 아니라
우리 자신에 있는 우리 자신들의 마음이 더 무서운 것.
And I believe it's not the nuclear weapons that people are afraid of, but we should be more afraid of our own hearts, our own selves.
북한에서는 이미 전에 핵이 터지지 않았지만 벌써 수백만 명이 굶어 죽었습니다.
In North Korea, even before any nuclear bomb was detonated, 3 million people, millions of people were killed.
그리고 지금 또 작게는 수십만 명, 많게는 수백만 명이 또 죽음을 기다리고 있죠.
And also, even now, as we speak, the low numbers would be in the hundreds of thousands, high figure would be into the millions again, and these number of people are on the verge of being killed as well.
이런 데서 국제사회에서 가장 크게 관심받는 게 핵 문제입니다.
And despite these troubling figures, the international community is only interested in the nuclear issue.
그리고 두 번째 관심받는 게 미국의 롱부스타가 이제 북한에 가서 김정은을 만난 거죠.
And the second thing is the fact that former pro basketball player from America went to North Korea and visited North Korea and met Kim Jong-un.
굉장히 큰 환대를 받았습니다. 이 사람은.
And this person received a great welcome in North Korea.
그리고 그가 말했죠.
And he said something.
김정일이 김정은이는 굉장히 위대한 리더라고.
And this particular sports athlete said that Kim Il-sung and Kim Jong-un were great leaders.
그리고 김정은이는 나의 친구라고.
And also said that Kim Jong-un is my friend.
김정은이는 국제사회에 자기 모습을 보여줬습니다.
So through this, Kim Jong-un has shown himself to the international community.
이 미국의 농구스타를 만남으로 해서 북한의 변화는 전혀 바라지 않고 오직 자기 취미생활 하는데 모든 것을 다 쓸 수 있다고 국제사회에 보여준 거죠.
And he showed to the international community that through meeting a star, like former star, like a basketball player, that he is revealing what he wants to show of himself to the international community.
저도 그 농구스타의 모습을 생생하게 봤습니다.
And I too saw in the news vividly the images of this basketball star visiting North Korea.
그리고 저는 그 농구스타를 보면서 이제 코웃음을 쳤죠.
And seeing all this, looking at the antics of this basketball star, I had to let out a laugh.
근데 만약 그 농구스타가 제 앞에 섰다면 저는 그의 엉덩이를 쳐주고 싶었어요.
But if this basketball player was standing before me, I would kick him in the butt.
근데 안타깝게도 그 친구가 키가 너무 크기 때문에 제 발이 그 사람 엉덩이까지 올라가지 않습니다.
But unfortunately, he is quite tall, so I don't know if my kick is reached his butt.
그래서 이제 사실 저희가 여러분들한테 이렇게 말씀드렸던 이유는 우리가 가장 정말 알아야 되고 우리가 가장 중요하게 생각하는 걸 우리 스스로가 모르고 있다는 거죠.
And the reason why I say this is that the thing that we must know the most, the thing that we must be aware of the most, we are not aware, or we do not know what we need to know.
설사 그걸 안다고 해도 우리는 그걸 애써 예면하려고 하고 있다는 거죠.
And even if we know what we need to know, we tend to ignore this issue.
제가 오늘 여러분들 앞에서 이렇게 북한에 대한 정치권 성세에 대한 얘기, 또 트위스트에 대한 얘기 말씀을 드릴 거지만은 마지막에 판단은 여러분들이 몫입니다.
And tonight I will talk about the political prison camp situation in North Korea, and also tell a little bit about my own life story and my testimony. But I believe that at the end of the evening, the final decision should be made by all of you here after listening to my story tonight.
제가 한 30분 동안 여러분들한테 이제 북한 수용소가 어떤 곳에 있고 어떻게 이제 이렇게 생겼는지를 보여드릴 거고 그 남은 시간은 여러분들이 저한테 질문해 주시고 제가 답변해 드릴게요.
So for about the first 30 minutes, I'll talk about the political prison camp system of North Korea, how and where it began. And the rest of the evening, I hope to engage in conversation with you and answer some questions from the people that are gathered here tonight.
우선 여러분들이 아마 구글어스를 보셨는지 모르겠지만
And I don't know if you have seen through Google Earth.
구글어스를 통해서 이제 정치권 성세 모습을 상상하게 볼 수가 있습니다.
And we can see via Google Earth the images of the political prison camps of North Korea in a very vivid manner.
제가 이 구글 회사에 좀 더 불만이 있는 게
One complaint that I have against Google Corporation is
1년 전까지만 해도 이 수용소의 중요한 수용소의 그 사진들은 다 잘 안 보이게 감춰놨었어요.
and I think what they did was even just a year ago they really didn't display or they hid the images or the imagery of the prison camps of North Korea.
작년에 구글 회장이 북한을 방문했을 때 이슈가 됐었죠.
And of course this became an issue when the Google chairman visited North Korea.
그분이 북한에서 어떤 환대를 받으셨는지 모르겠지만은 갔다 오셔가지고 굉장히 화가 나서 이제 그 그 수용소들을 싹 거기에 시켰습니다.
And I don't know what kind of treatment he received in North Korea, but I believe he came back and perhaps in a fit of anger, or he released all the pictures, or he let it be made public, all the imagery, the pictures of North Korea, especially the prison camp imagery.
아마 러드맨만큼은 환대를 못 받은 것 같아요.
And most likely he did not receive a warm welcome as Rodman did.
사실 이 북한 수용소의 면적은 굉장히 광범위하죠. 여러분들이 아마 상상하실 뭐 이렇게 사진으로 보지만은 아마 상상할 수는 없습니다.
The size and the scope of the prison camp system in North Korea, it's quite big. It's probably beyond anyone's imagination here.
지금 이렇게 빨간 줄로 표시를 해놓은 게 지금 제가 살았던 14호 수용소의 모습을 표시를 해놓은 겁니다.
The area surrounded by the red line is Camp 14, the camp that I was born and raised in.
이제 이 14호 수용소라는 게 언제 처음에 생긴지 저도 사실 잘은 몰라요.
And I myself do not know when exactly Camp 14 was built.
대략 한 1960년에서 65년에 처음 생겼다고 그렇게 들은 적은 있고.
I've heard that in the period of between 1960 or 65 was when Camp 14 was constructed.
이렇게 위성 사진으로 봤을 때는 사실 별반 차이는 없어요.
However, when you look through the satellite imagery, there really isn't much difference when you look at it.
하지만 그 부분을 이렇게 철조망으로 합니다. 전기 철조망으로.
However, you can see, well, it's you can see the electrified fence that surrounds the Camp 14 area.
잘 보이시죠?
Can you see the fence?
예. 이제 북한은 사실 전기가 굉장히 부족하죠. 공장도 못 돌리고 사람들이 불을 볼 수가 없죠.
Of course, in North Korea, electricity is very scarce. The power supply is very erratic.
하지만 정치범 수용소의 이 전기 철조망은 24시간 전기가 꺼지지 않습니다.
However, the electricity that is needed to supply the electrified fence in the prison camps are supplied 24 hours a day.
그 이유는 이렇게 강을 막아서 발전소를 만들어가지고 전기를 이제 자체로 공급하게 되죠.
And that is because they built a dam right near a hydroelectric dam right near the prison camp, and through this, they're able to produce electricity to supply power for the electrified fence.
이거는 그 맞은편에 있는 그 전기 철조망의 모습이죠.
And that is the picture or the imagery of the electrified fence on the other side of the prison camp.
사실 이 위성 사진이 겨울이었을 때는 굉장히 그 철조망도 잘 보였고 했는데 지금 이렇게 여름의 모습을 보여주니까 가려가지고 잘 안 나옵니다.
Actually, if the imagery was taken during the winter time, you could see the fence very clearly. But in the summertime imagery like this, it's a little bit difficult to see the fence in the imagery.